The Atlanta Falcons are in the middle of a whirlwind of offseason movement, and if you're a fan of the team, buckle up because things are about to get interesting. A key defensive player is gone, the quarterback situation is in flux, and the NFL draft could completely reshape the future of the franchise. Be sure to hit that like button to stay informed. We'll break it down, and I want to hear your thoughts at the end. Let's start with the big departure, Lorenzo Carter. The Tennessee Titans signed Carter as a free agent, taking away a player who has been a constant force for Atlanta's defense over the past 3 seasons. Carter, who originally started his career with the New York Giants, played 47 games for the Falcons, racking up 125 tackles, 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. While he wasn't a star, he was a reliable presence. Now, the Falcons need to fill that void. But here's the thing, this move didn't come as a total shock. The Falcons were already prepared for the possibility of losing Carter by signing Divine Deablo and Leonard Floyd. So while Carter's departure hurts, the front office had a plan in place. That doesn't mean the defense is set in stone, though. The Falcons' pass rush has been a weak spot for years, and if they don't address it in the draft, it could be a lingering issue again in 2025. Speaking of issues, Atlanta's quarterback situation is more complicated than ever. Just a year ago, the Falcons gave Kirk Cousins a massive 4-year, $180 million contract, expecting him to be their franchise quarterback. But after a roller coaster season, that future is now in doubt. Cousins started off strong, including a huge 509-yard passing game against the Buccaneers in Week 5. But as the season progressed, things fell apart. In his last 5 starts, Cousins threw just 1 touchdown to 9 interceptions, and Atlanta finished 1-4 in those games. That performance led the Falcons to bench him in favor of first-round draft pick Michael Penix Jr. Here's where things get really interesting. The Falcons now have a highly paid quarterback on their roster who may not even be their starter. Cousins is in year 2 of his contract, and while Atlanta could keep him as a backup, that's a very expensive insurance policy. The reality? The Falcons could look to move on from him either by trade or outright release. And if that happens, where could Cousins land? Several teams are potential fits, but some of those options have started to disappear. The New York Giants, for example, were once considered a possible destination, but they've now signed both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, effectively taking them out of the running. That's actually good news for the Falcons because it narrows the market, putting more pressure on teams still searching for a veteran QB. The Cleveland Browns are one possibility. Deshaun Watson has been unreliable, and while trading for Cousins might be tough financially, if he's released, Cleveland could be interested. There's also the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have been linked to multiple veteran quarterbacks this offseason, and Cousins could be a safer option than Aaron Rodgers, who comes with significant baggage. Then there's the Minnesota Vikings. A reunion with his former team could make sense, especially if they don't fully trust Sam Darnold or whoever they draft. The Titans, who hold the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft, could also be a wild card. If they take a young quarterback, having a veteran like Cousins as a bridge option might be appealing. Regardless of where Cousins lands, the Falcons have a big decision to make. Keeping him means paying a lot for a backup. Moving on from him means fully committing to Penix Jr. and hoping he's ready to take over. Either way, it's a franchise-defining choice. And that brings us to the draft. The Falcons have the number 15 pick in the first round, and ESPN's Matt Miller has made an eye-catching projection. He believes Atlanta could select Alabama linebacker Jihad Campbell. The reason? His pass rush potential. Miller sees Campbell as a possible Micah Parsons-type player, someone who can transition from linebacker to edge rusher and become a game-wrecker. This would be a bold move for the Falcons, especially considering the lack of elite pass rushers they've had in recent years. Since John Abraham, Atlanta hasn't had a true, dominant force on the edge. If Campbell can develop into that type of player, it could be a game-changer for the defense. But is Campbell the right pick? Some fans might argue that Atlanta should take a true edge rusher rather than a hybrid player who still needs development. The Falcons also have other needs, especially at cornerback and defensive tackle. They could look at players like Texas DT Alfred Collins, who has the size and strength to anchor the defensive line. The draft strategy also depends on whether the Falcons try to trade back. Terry Fontenot has made it clear that he's open to adding more picks, and if there's a team willing to move up, Atlanta could slide back, gain extra selections, and still land a quality defensive prospect. There's so much to unpack here, and we're just getting started. We still have more draft moves to break down, the future of the Falcons defense to explore, and how this all ties into the long-term vision for the franchise. So before we continue, I want to hear from you. Do you think the Falcons should move on from Kirk Cousins? Is Jihad Campbell the right pick at number 15? Drop a comment below. And here's where things get even more intense. The Falcons' draft strategy isn't just about one pick, it's about how they plan to reshape this defense for the long haul. If Atlanta truly wants to fix its pass rush problem, Jihad Campbell could be a big swing, but is he the best move at number 15? Some experts argue that if the Falcons want a true edge rusher, they should consider someone like Mike Green from LSU or Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Both players bring more traditional pass rushing skills, while Campbell is seen as more of a hybrid linebacker who might take time to develop into a dominant force on the edge. The question is, can the Falcons afford to wait? Remember, the last time the Falcons had a truly elite pass rusher was John Abraham back in 2012. It's been more than a decade since this defense had someone opposing quarterbacks feared. If the Falcons believe Campbell can become that guy, then taking him at number 15 could be worth it. But if they pass on a true edge rusher and Campbell doesn't develop into a game wrecker, they could be making the same mistake they've made before, taking versatile defenders instead of pure pass rushers. And it's not just about one player. The Falcons' entire draft strategy is built around fixing their defense. That's why, in Miller's full 7-round mock draft, he had them follow up on Campbell's pick by selecting Texas defensive tackle Alfred Collins at number 46. Collins is a massive 6'4", 315-pound defensive lineman with the ability to play multiple positions up front. He's strong against the run and has shown some pass rush potential, which is exactly what the Falcons need. But here's the big concern. The Falcons don't have a lot of picks. They only have 5 selections in this year's draft, which means they have very little margin for error. If they take the wrong guy at number 15, they don't have the luxury of making up for it with multiple day 2 picks. That's why a trade scenario could make sense. If the Falcons can find a team willing to move up, they could gain additional picks and still land a high-impact defender later in the first round. Terry Fontenot has already hinted that he's open to coming back. And with so many defensive players expected to be available at number 15, it could be a smart move. But that depends on whether another team is willing to trade. If the Falcons can't find a trade partner, they need to make sure they get this pick right. The Falcons are in a unique position here. If they can find a trade partner, they can free up salary cap space and fully commit to Michael Penix Jr. as their starter. And let's be honest, if the Falcons believe Penix is the guy, keeping Cousins around doesn't make sense. You don't pay $45 million a year to a backup. That money could be used to further strengthen the defense. This is a critical offseason for Atlanta. The moves they make in the coming weeks will determine whether they take a step forward or continue to struggle. So now, I want to hear from you. Should the Falcons keep Cousins, or is it time to move on? Is Jihad Campbell the right choice at number 15, or should they go after a true edge rusher? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more news. Go Falcons!